police misconduct against minority individuals in Ferguson, Cleveland, Baltimore, and closer to home in Charlottesville, Virginia, by agents of the Commonwealth. Do these incidents, all three, represent a problem or a trend in Virginia, and what would you do?
I think we have to look at the underlying issues that are creating these peaceful protests in these cities. And the first, obviously there is tension between law enforcement and the community, and I think there has to be ways that the community is able to engage with law enforcement in a productive manner. The other underlying issue are economic in nature. When we look at Baltimore and Cleveland, and I think a lot of people feel that the current economic system, isn't serving them. And like one of the things I've been talking about is making sure all Virginians have a fair shot, and creating economic opportunities, for all Virginians, including at the entry level, and making sure that those who had committed crimes but have paid their debts to society are also able to participate in the workforce. That's one of the reasons why I actually worked with my friend Burke Brownfeld on a ban the box resolution for the Democratic Committee, which was actually adopted by the Democratic Party of Virginia. And that's a way to ensure that all have an opportunity to succeed.
Mr. Biden?
I do think that a lot of the root cause of the problems that we've seen in other parts of the country have come from a toxic relationship between local police and the community. And so the way to get at that systemically is to create a sense of engagement, transparency, and accountability for law enforcement agencies. We have to give law enforcement a great deal of power in order to do their jobs, but we also have to hold them accountable. When I served on the Virginia Freedom of Information Advisory Council for 8 years under Governor Warner and then under Governor Kane, I chaired a subcommittee that looked at transparency in police records. This is an area that I think causes a lot of resentment and needless suspicion on the part of the public. I support body-worn cameras for police officers, both for the protection of the community and for the protection of the officer. I think probably in equal numbers those cameras will pan out to help both sides. But we have to make sure that those records are dealt with in some sort of sensible, appropriate way, protecting the privacy of people who seek the help of law enforcement while also protecting the public's right to have trust and confidence in their police officers.
Mr. Altenberg?
There are a number of key issues that you've raised, one of which is the underlying racial discrimination that we're still dealing with in this country. And the fact is, we don't talk about racial discrimination as much as we probably should. The power relationship between anyone in the uniform, the police uniform, and the people that they're supposed to be policing has gotten way askew. And a lot of that comes back to the racial disparity between those who are in the uniform and those who are not. We have to get back to community policing. The militarization of our police forces, especially with military surplus coming out of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, has just turned our police forces into a pseudo-military organization. And that is not what we should be doing with our police forces. I want my children to be able to turn to a police officer and not be afraid that the police officer will effectively incarcerate them in the back of the car while they're free-ranging around the Delray community. My children are 6 and 9. I expect them to be able to walk to school by themselves. And the fact that we no longer trust each other is truly underlying this issue. We've got to get to a position where we trust each other as human beings first.
Mr. Levine.
So let's be frank. Police violence, racism, this is nothing new. Police mistreating people who are innocent people, unarmed people, this is nothing new. What we have now is we have cameras. So we can see it. We can see Eric Garner. We can see what happened in South Carolina. I fully support police body cameras. I do think it protects the truth. It certainly protects citizens from renegade police officers. It also protects police officers from renegade citizens. When I put it in my literature, a lot of people were surprised because it's sort of a new issue you don't see up there. But I think it's a very, very important one because we have to regain the trust in the community. Partly that's done through community policing, done through police forces that live in the neighborhoods they serve and know the people they serve and walk the beat, walk the street of the neighborhoods they serve. I think that's very important. In terms of privacy, and I was actually on local news talking about this just a few months ago, I think these cameras can be revolving, much like you do walk into 7-Eleven. And, 24 hours later, or maybe 2 weeks later, the cameras replace each other. I don't think we need 24/7 every police officer. Yeah, that would be incredibly expensive. If there's a complaint, yes, of course, you save that tape. If there's no complaint, then run it over, no one will see it. And I've talked to police officers in many doors about that and what we can do. I also think these cameras will help for racial statistics so we can find out how much of this, because I gotta tell you, I'm not so sure that Larry Altenberg's kids in Delray, unfortunately, would be as much trouble as some kids of Everett for Q, and I don't want to believe that, but I'm afraid I know it's true.
Ms. Chapman.
So this one's very personal for me. I have a biracial great nephew. If you follow me on Facebook, he's the cute, funny little guy you see on the page. And some have criticized me for talking about that, but quite honestly, I worry about what his experience is going to be like when he graduates from high school in 15 years, and whether he sees a future that includes college or worries about being targeted. I applaud our law enforcement officers. I think they mean to do the very best they can. But we have two issues going on here. One is race, and one is socioeconomics. We need to build relationships with one another. Children shouldn't be growing up afraid of the police, and the police should not be assuming that someone who does not look like them or looks like a particular profile is automatically a criminal. And if people have relationships with people, they understand that. We need to invest in low-income communities. Part of what happened in Ferguson was that if you lost your license and you couldn't afford, if your license was suspended and you couldn't pay to take the test, then you lost your license. If you lost your license and you tried to go to work on a license that you no longer had, you got arrested for that. So you couldn't get to your job. After you lose your job, because you can't go to your job, you still can't get your license back. You can't get the next job. You can't pay your rent. And you wonder why you might be angry. In the end, we need relationships to happen. We need community policing. We need people to actually be community. And while I think cameras are crucial for evidentiary purposes, they are not how we build relationships.